first step to working out your staff costs is to enter your staff profile. Now this is how your staff profile will look when you're going for the first time, and of course I haven't entered any information. Now the information you put in here is absolutely vital, because from this we'll be working out things like average hourly rates, which the tool will use when creating new quotes to work out how much care costs. Because staff costs is part of your running cost, your total staff cost has to be divided by the number of residents you have on average, so your average occupancy level, which is that capacity number that you put in at the home detail page. Information that you put in here also helps work out what your extra employer costs are going to be, and that is a serious extra cost. Could be 20-25% extra on top of your hourly rate costs or salary staff costs. We look at that in the next section. So the whole idea here is that you enter all of your staff and you're given your hourly rates, how many hours they work, and so on and so forth, so that the tool can very accurately allocate cost per resident. Working from the top, you see that there are information buttons as before, which will explain how the page works or how the tables work. And of course, there are the video guides like this one you're watching now, and I really can't emphasize enough how important it is that you look at these videos, that you work through these videos. So let's now look at how to complete your staff profile. The first section relates to your care staff, and here you'll enter in this top table information about your full-time equivalent staff. So how many days or shifts do the majority of your full-time equivalent staff work each week, and how many hours do the majority of your full-time equivalent staff work each week. This is needed when working out your extra employer costs. Because you may employ part-time staff, for employer costs we do need to work out the equivalent full-time number of staff and the hours that they work. But we'll come back to that a little later and fill these other bits in first. Next, you have a table where you enter all of your employed care staff that deliver standard care, as opposed to specialist care, which is this table below. And I'll talk again more about that in a little while. And there is the information button here. Then there's agency staff. And in this table, you enter how many care staff you have on average in a 24-hour period. Next, we have nursing, if you're a nursing home, and other employed hourly rate staff. Now these are filled in with kitchen, living well, housekeeping, administration. You can change this to other, so you could have kitchen, housekeeping, administration, other, or maintenance, or however you want to decide how to categorize your other hourly rate staff. Now the reason why we separate the care staff and the nursing staff is because from this information we work out what your average hourly rate for your care staff is, which is then applied in the quotes section to the care that is being delivered, working out hence the cost of that care, and the same for the nursing staff. And then you have a section here for salaried staff. And then we have a summary table, overall staff numbers and average shifts to get your total employed number of staff, your total number of FTE staff, and the average days and shifts these FTEs work each week, these full-time equivalents work each week. And again, that will become clear as to why we need that when it comes to working out your extra employer costs. And here is a summary of the average number of shifts a week and the number of FTEs per section or per team. So back at care staff, let's start entering your staff team. So let's say, for example, you have senior care level. So we'll put in senior care if I could spell senior. Tab across, and what is their hourly rate? So let's say their hourly rate is £12. And how many staff do you have in this role? Well, it might turn out that you have senior carers, but on 2 different hourly rates. So let's say you have 6 senior carers, but 3 of them are on a different hourly rate. So you need to separate those positions. So if you have 6 senior carers and 3 are on £12, so 3 are on a different hourly rate, then here you put 3 for those who are on £12 an hour. And because we're going to create therefore another row, we'll call this level 1. And we'll create a row called level 2. Number of hours this person works in a shift. In our sister companies, nursing homes, they work 12-hour shifts. So we'll base this on those 12-hour shifts. A number of shifts per person per week. To get the full hours worked a month, they work 3 shifts one week and 4 shifts another week. So on average, that's 3.5 shifts a week. And that works out at 126 hours. So we add row, and now we put in senior care level 2. And they're on an hourly rate of, let's say, £11.70. And there's 3 of those, 12-hour shifts, 3.5, and that's again 126. And you see here, it's now added up that you have a total of 6 people in your care staff, 21 shifts a week, 252 hours. So you see how this information is building as you go. Now up here you have, do you have any care apprentices? And it's default to no. And I'll show you what happens when we say yes if you do have care apprentices. So we add another row, and you have a level of carers that are below the senior cares. And they also are on different hourly rates. So you have care level 1, and they may be on 1065, let's say, and you have, in this case, let's say 18 of those, 12-hour shifts, and 1,008 now is the total of staffing hours a week. Now, if you say you do have apprentices, you see this extra column that has been entered. And now you have also a total for apprentices. Now, the reason why we're separating this out like this is that when it comes to extra employee costs, apprentices receive a lot more training than non-apprentices. So it could be, say, 45 days a year. So that training is a cost to you if your apprentices aren't supernumerary. In other words, if you have to then provide extra shifts or bring in agency to cover their shifts. And if that's the case, then we need to differentiate that extra cost to you for when your apprentices are on training. So you need to specify apprentices. So if we just continue with care level 2, and there and no, and they might be on the current living wage of £10.42, and there are, let's say, 11 of those, 12-hour shifts, 3.5, and let's add in apprentices. So in this case, you're saying yes. Tab across and say they're on £5.50, and you have 2 of those. So now you see the 2 apprentices are added up separately. So you have total permanent staff, as we call them, the non-apprentice staff, 35, and the total apprentices is 2. That's 7 shifts, 84 hours for the apprentices. And the reason we do this is so that we know how many apprentices in the extra cost and if they need covering because of the extra days that they are in training. Agency, you fill in like you would employed staff. You say how many agency, separate them by their hourly rate, how many staff in the role, how many shifts on average that they work. And what the tool does with this information, it creates a blended hourly rate based on your employed staff and your agency staff. So you don't have to differentiate whether it's agency staff who are delivering particular care to a particular person or employed staff. That's too complicated. So what you need to do is have a blended average hourly rate for your employed staff and agency staff. And this information is what went into the fair cost of care tool that commissioners now use to try and tell you that they know better than you with regards to agency staff costs and blended hourly rates. So they'll ask questions to try and catch you out, like, what is your blended average hourly rate? Do you use agency? Yes, we do. So what's your blended average hourly rate? And if they catch you out, if you go, I don't know, then they'll start arguing, well, how do you know that your fee is accurate? And how do you know that the fee we want to pay instead isn't the right fee? And this is what councils are doing to save hundreds of thousands of pounds in some cases at your cost. But with this tool, you'll have all of this information. You can defend your numbers. In this table, you enter details about the number of carers you have over a 24-hour period. So, for example, if you have 12-hour shifts like our nursing homes, you could put in a day shift as opposed to a daisy shift. How many residents per care staff member? So what's the ratio of residents to staff? So for the daytime, it could be a ratio of 5. So to look after all of your residents, you need 10 staff. Number of hours per shift per person, again, that's that 12 hours in our case, and that's the staffing hours. Now, if you, for example, have 2 day shifts, if you have, say, 3 shifts a day, and you have 2 day shifts, you would have day shift 1 and day shift 2, and so on. If we had a row, night shift, and have 8, let's say, that's 6.25, because it works out based on how many residents, the number you put in terms of your capacity, so that's your number of residents that you're looking after on average. Now you could decide that 6.25 isn't a number you want to work with, so you can edit this box and change that to 6, for example. And there's this table, employed specialist care staff. If you provide high-end care, specialist care, like one-to-ones for some of your residents, but not all of them, then the number of staff you use to provide specialist care, you need to separate from those who provide standard care. All the residents receive care from my care staff team. And each week, that staff team costs me a certain amount of money. It could be £100,000, let's say. And that £100,000 a week needs to be divided across all of your residents. But if only some of them receive specialist care, and you put those staff that provide the specialist care into this table, then the cost per resident will increase. All of your residents will be paying a percentage of that specialist care, even though they don't receive it. Then when it comes to creating an individual fee quote, and you add in the extra care that a particular resident is receiving, then you're essentially charging for that extra care. But also in the general staff cost, which contributes to the break-even cost, there is a percentage of that specialist care in there too. So you'll be charging extra. And as I say, all of your residents will be charged a certain amount for the specialist care that only a certain amount of individuals receive. So we have to separate the specialist care that only some receive. So let me say this again. If none of your residents need specialist care, then all of your care team would be in here, and the whole cost of your care team would be divided equally amongst those residents. But if some of those residents need specialist care, then they need to be separated out. So that specialist care number of staff cost isn't spread across all of your residents. Having completed your care staff, you then complete nursing, as we've gone through earlier, and the other employed hourly rate staff, salaried staff. All the summary will be filled in, and then you save to employer costs. Now in part 2 of this video, I'll take you through a fully completed staff profile, so it's really worth watching. And this will be based on a 50-bedded nursing home, and then I'll use this example to move on to talking about employer costs, average hourly rates, and so on. So please do watch part 2 where every single table is completed so you get the full picture.